So here we are. The Anthem demo is out, the free version is next weekend, and players have gotten their first taste. From everything I've seen, the game is fine, it's acceptable, it's got some good parts, it's got some bad parts, but the sad truth is that acceptable is simply not good enough to save Bioware, and it's not what EA will tolerate. It's no secret that EA has become an industry pariah. Gamers nowadays are delighted to level criticism and hatred towards the publisher because it has perpetrated some of the most egregious acts in the entire space when it comes specifically to monetization. I could do multiple entire videos on the way they prey on their sports fans, or how they ran Star Wars into the ground through the exclusive licensing agreement, but that's not the topic for today. All that needs to be said is that EA has become so despised that many gamers are actively searching for ways to hurt them or reasons to stay away, and such an atmosphere will directly impact Anthem in a very real way. 2 years ago, in 2017, EA closed down Visceral Games. The studio had reportedly been working on a linear, story-driven Star Wars game, which fans were quite excited about, but tough luck, EA gave them the boot. The Star Wars project was later repurposed into an open-world version with a games-as-a-service model, but it got cut again, and is now some sort of smaller project, most likely meant to coincide with the next generation of consoles as they release. In the very same year, Bioware Montreal released Mass Effect Andromeda, also under the EA umbrella, and the game was, without mincing words, a failure, and resulted in the Mass Effect series being put on ice completely, while the Montreal branch of Bioware was absorbed into EA Motive. Andromeda also saw its single-player updates and patches get shut down completely within 5 months of release because the game was performing so poorly. By comparison, the support and updates for Mass Effect 3, the previous entry in the series, remained steady for over a year. EA has a pattern of either shutting down studios completely or merging them into other areas when projects perform badly. They do not believe in continued support for non-profitable franchises and instead pour their investment into proven areas. But with the FIFA community finally starting to voice its discontent, with the industry becoming increasingly hostile to the annualized and barely modified sports genre as a whole, and their inability to push forward with progression-based loot boxes in other core areas of their games, like Battlefront 2, EA is now in a dire situation. The publisher has gorged itself on easy, cost-effective releases for so long with unbelievably high returns due to their microtransaction and loot box monetization models that their new baseline, the numbers their investors are expecting and requiring, are unrealistically high. Battlefield 5, another of EA's core projects at the moment, is underperforming its predecessor, Battlefield 1, by a significant margin, and is mired in scandal and community distaste. In an atmosphere where stockholders and executives expect year-over-year and quarter-over-quarter increases, EA has enemies at the gate. Their situation is dire, and, on average, gamers at large want them to fail. Why are we discussing all of this? Well, it's to establish that EA is in a rough spot and needs to hit a home run, and also to underline the point that they have no problem whatsoever closing down studios or merging them into other projects, especially if they produce underperforming games. They also, unfortunately, have no regard for public opinion surrounding closures or merges. Fans wanted a new single-player Star Wars. EA couldn't care less and shut down Visceral. The Mass Effect fans that stuck with Andromeda, though they were few at the time, wanted further content. EA, again, couldn't care less, merged the studio and shut down post-launch updates. If Anthem performs badly, Bioware will most likely be either shut down or merged into another of EA's larger studios to preserve their talent, but mostly to cut costs and trim fat. The second thing to consider is the proclaimed 10-year plan for Anthem, similar to Destiny, which was slated for 4 games over 10 years and then barely managed to muddle through 2 games in 7 years with numerous speed bumps along the way. Anthem is currently taking an overly optimistic and largely disingenuous approach of claiming a 10-year support and update cycle when the possibility and likelihood of the project and its development studio undergoing an extreme overhaul or outright closure is already looming very large. As for Anthem itself, well, the community is largely divided. As we discussed previously, a lot of gamers are simply writing the game off in its entirety due to EA's name being anywhere near the project. Maybe it's unrealistic, maybe it's smart, who knows? I'll refrain from diving into that can of worms exactly right now, but either way, it will certainly impact Anthem's sales. Bioware decided to offer a traditional demo to potential buyers. Conceptually, a very good move, but the demo was in poor technical condition with numerous game-breaking bugs, and also, the deliberate statement was made that the balancing and economy would be completely different after final release. This screenshot is now circulating. It was also indirectly confirmed on Reddit to be an actual screenshot of the game itself and not a Photoshop fabrication or otherwise faked. Underneath the post, a Bioware senior systems designer commented, "Hey there, one thing to keep in mind is these don't represent final stamped for all eternity pricing. We are iterating on our economy design and balance almost daily, so you're seeing a snapshot of one iteration, which does indicate it is an actual snapshot of a pricing model they were and are legitimately considering. If the store follows any sort of industry norm, 100 shards will be purchased for about $1. Similar amounts are seen in Fallout 76 with atoms, Call of Duty with their points, and any number of other typical new age microtransaction shops. Except for Red Dead 2 Online, they went for a 2 or a 3 to 1 ratio because holy hell is Take-Two greedy. If the pricing models stay even remotely close to their current amounts, skins and other cosmetics will be costing $10 or $20 even. Plus, the in-game alternative, coins, will be required in the tens of thousands for one single item. Now yes, these values may be subject to change. The earning rates for coins in-game may be quite high, but keep in mind that EA is under pressure, and thus Bioware is under pressure to bump up earnings and rake in profits. EA has tried to go after progression with their microtransactions before, and it blew up in their face. They cannot attempt the same, at least not at launch. With Anthem, it would be a death sentence for the game. They are rightly restricting their monetization to cosmetics only, but are we as players so delusional as to think they will not absolutely destroy the cosmetic portion of the game with price tags, with throttling, and other purchase incentives? They are in dire need of a blockbuster to pick up the slack after one of the roughest years they have ever seen as a publisher in their entire lifespan. The cosmetic system in Anthem, free from the yoke of aggressive monetization, is actually very, very good and would be a selling point for many players. But if that changes and the process of making your Javelin unique gets perverted into a cash grab, the game will lose players and suffer tremendously as a result. Another key area that will cause decreased interest is loot and progression. The demo has very clearly had its payouts bumped up significantly, with dozens of pieces of gear rewarded for a single mission. The problem is, that level of reward feels truly great. Because of the game's complexity and the number of potential options, even when rewarded 30 plus items for a single 45-minute dungeon, it does not feel overly fast. After 12 or more runs over and over, 10 hours or more of the same mission at the same level, mind you not endgame, mid-level, players will be finding new variations on gear with slight power level increases or different stats. Lowering those rewards will cut back on the satisfaction, and again, negatively impact the game. If the demo was an actual slice of the full game with realistic and indicative balancing, none of this would be an issue, but with super different balancing and a completely different economy, the player base is on edge even further, and Anthem needs to put players' minds at ease, not rile them up. Anthem isn't a terrible game. Some aspects are quite enjoyable, others less so, but it will certainly have an audience. It's not for everyone, but those that enjoy the genre and concept will find enjoyment within it, and thus it will have at least moderate success and be a semi-viable game. But that's not enough. It's not enough for EA, and as a result, it's not enough for Bioware. I've seen the unbelievably ignorant statement being thrown around that there are millions of players trying to log in and millions of gamers who are in the demo. That's why the problem surfaced. Statements like that are flat out idiocy. Tom Clancy's The Division currently holds the mantle of the most successful fresh IP offering, claiming the title from its previous contender Destiny, and during opening weekend it boasted a reported high of 1.2 million concurrent players. Now, the game's player base soon tanked, it was nowhere near as successful as it could have been, and I am not arguing that it's a superior game, merely citing it as a baseline. At the time, Ubisoft was not under the microscope. Sure, there were those that bore the publisher ill will, but by and large, they were not hated, they were merely another big-name publisher. For Anthem to have millions of concurrent players in its VIP demo a month out from launch, it would have to have sold an unbelievably high number of pre-orders, seeing as the first beta offering was indeed barred behind the pre-order. And though there were friend codes and various media outlets were given keys, influencers as well, it would still be already, by far, the most successful fresh IP in history. All this while its publisher is the most hated company in the entire industry, and legions of players boycott the game and help encourage others to do the same. It is absolutely idiotic to think that Anthem had millions of players trying to log into the demo. Now, I'm not sure what exact benchmarks EA has, but I have already seen hundreds, likely thousands of gamers within just the upper echelon community who cite a similarity to Warframe, except Warframe is free, and thus they will stick to it. Others draw parallels to Destiny, but with Bungie out from under Activision's thumb, they have rekindled their hopes for the Destiny franchise and will be staying true to that. Still others are holding out for The Division 2, launching a month after Anthem, which is also a looter shooter. Anthem needed to put gamers' minds at ease. It needed to blow away the player base with fresh, innovative gameplay. It needed to assure everyone that the grind would not be throttled and manipulated to drive players into the cash shop, that it would not corrupt the cosmetic system and squeeze the fans at every turn. It did none of that. The demo is not an accurate representation of the final product. The whole offering, and the first day especially, were plagued with serious issues. The PC port in the demo version is pretty bad, and a myriad of other non-ideal situations and mechanics were present. Anthem is already faced with a great deal of distrust, but the internal expectation from on high is that it will turn out to be a blockbuster regardless, which is likely impossible. I cannot verify this estimation, but from a source I have come to trust a decent amount recently that has a variety of verified insider connections, I have heard that the expectation is roughly 10 million units sold in the first 14 days. Should that benchmark be met, Bioware will continue to support the game, the 10-year plan will progress as described, and all is well in the world of Anthem. Should that goal be missed, an evaluation will take place and Bioware will either transition staff to another development studio or be closed down completely. Depending on how severely this projection is missed, it could result in live services for the game being terminated and the 10-year plan being scrapped in its entirety as Bioware shuts down completely. Again, this is not something I can verify for a fact with my own ears and eyes, but after considering the current state of EA, the condition of Anthem, the community sentiment, and historical references, I find it impossible to see any scenario other than a relatively mediocre Anthem launch, a lukewarm reception of a perfectly acceptable game, but nothing even close to an industry blockbuster, and I do hope it succeeds, at least enough to keep Bioware alive. It has some very positive elements, I just don't see it being very likely. Anyways, that's about it. I was going to do a big sponsor plug and shout out in this video, but it already dragged on long enough. I'll chop it down to the bullet points. Check out Shadow, it's linked down below. It's remote cloud-based PC gaming where you stream the gameplay from a data center. It's pretty crazy new age stuff, makes PC gaming more accessible without having to buy all the hardware yourself, and it might be useful for some people. And if you do decide to try it, if it is useful for you, use code UEG at checkout for a very big discount. But yeah, it's late, I'm tired, that's enough. Buy the merch, join the communities, blah blah blah, standard outro stuff, you get it, typical YouTuber things. Have a nice night though, that's it.